Was, se habla español.
KBLA Talk 1580 is dedicated to empowering our communities by providing progressive talk radio for our audience. We strive to be an intersectional voice for the voiceless. As a Black-owned and operated station, we are committed to highlighting diverse perspectives and creating safe spaces for meaningful dialogue. We believe that everyone has something unique to bring to these political, economic, social, and cultural conversations. And we don't shy away from the hard conversations about current events. We endeavor to be a beacon of hope and understanding, while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners, so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.
Wanted a girl just like you. You're such a purity, pretty young thing. Ooh. Where did you come from, baby? And ooh, won't you take me there right away? Won't you, baby? Tenderoni, you've got to be. Spot my need, just sugar fly with me. Don't you know now is the perfect time? We can make it right in the city.
Okay, you know I had to let the Michael vibe for a second because that is PYT. That's Michael Jackson, Thriller, 1982. Shout out to Michael. August 29th is his birthday. We miss him greatly, dearly. We're going to get some special Michael Jackson stories in the second hour. You are locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. Welcome in, VIPs. Happy Tuesday. I hope that you are relaxed, that you have a snack, and maybe a libation. It's only Tuesday. You know, you could be drinking fruit punch. But we are here to have a lot of conversation tonight. This is the show where we hit all the trending topics and headlines across entertainment, sports, lifestyle, and culture. I am your host, Jill Munroe. And before we get into the topics for tonight, I have to make sure that you're locked in, that you're tapped in, that you have all the tools you'll need to make sure that you enjoy this experience. So hit us up on our socials. Make sure those are locked in, KBLA 1580. If you haven't already, download the app. That way you can take us with you, go wherever. Listen to us on the go. You can listen to this show later if you need to. Make sure that if you're into YouTube, we have an active YouTube community that goes. So lock in there. Check us out live. The comments in the chat are usually pretty fun. There's a lot that goes down there. And of course, I'm at Stiletto Jill. Follow me everywhere. And if you are so inclined and feel like you want to comment, ask a question, share. Give us a call, 800-920-1580. 800-920-1580. Now, let me tell you what we have on deck for this evening. We're going to talk about Styles P. You know Styles P from The Lox. He and Jada are the kings of, well, I shouldn't say they're the kings of New York. After that Versus match against the Diplomats, they were the kings of New York for like a week. You know, everybody was feeling it. But, you know, rap, would you consider them rap royalty? Are they in the party? What do you consider them?
They're your favorite rapper's favorite rapper.
Okay, exactly. That's a good one because everybody loves Kiss. He's probably in a lot of top fives unexpectedly. But we're talking about Styles P right now. We're going to have, he was on a guy named Touré's podcast. Not sure if you know Touré. He's a journalist. And he shared his thoughts about why he prefers Donald Trump's clear racism, those are his words, to what's happening currently with Joe Biden, President Joe Biden. So we're going to hear that. We're going to discuss that a little bit. We're also going to talk about your guy, Billy Porter. You know, Billy's been in the news a lot lately. He discuss why feels he was kicked out of mainstream R&B back in the 90s. You know, Billy had an album out, and it didn't do what he thought that it should do. And so he feels like there's a reason behind that. So we're going to get into that story. We're going to talk about Diddy and his generous efforts. He donated money to both Jackson State and Earn Your Leisure. We're going to get into the amounts and what it's going to be used for. We also have more Cardi B discussion. Cardi says that she is putting a pause on musical collaborations right now. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about why and get into that. We will also talk about, in the second hour, some NFL news. But this time, this centers on the wives. One star quarterback's wife has a podcast, and she shared some information that some might consider to be a little boundary stepping, a little revealing in a place that maybe she shouldn't have. We're going to discuss that. We're also going to talk about the TikTok of another NFL wife, and she is on the opposite end of the spectrum. And today is Tuesday. It is Cut Down Tuesday. It is when NFL teams make their final cuts of NFL players and lock their rosters for the season. It is nerve-wracking for a lot of people. Livelihoods are dependent on that. And we're going to talk about what one NFL wife shared on TikTok about that experience. We're also going to get into a little bit of, in relation to football, a CTE study that has found that 40% of athletes who died before 30 suffer from CTE. So we're going to talk about that. And some comments from Antonio Brown. They are related. We are also going to get into what Charles Barkley might do if Warner, which is the owner of Inside the NBA, decides not to re-up their NBA contract. And we have a guest second hour, a singer-songwriter who has a unique connection to the Jackson family and Michael Jackson. We'll get into that. His name is Bobby Newt. We'll talk all up to him about his journey and his story. It's pretty interesting, so make sure you're locked in for that. And then the third hour, we're going to talk about your guy, Tyrese. Boy, Tyrese is a sharer. And Tyrese has a lot of commentary right now in relation to his child support payments and his ex-wife. And he has some dating advice for any man that might be pursuing his ex-wife. We're going to hear those comments and talk about that. We're going to get into all of those things. But before we do that, of course, we have a couple of conversation starters to get the night going. Just, some things that you need to know. So on Friday, it is Lakers Day at Dodger Stadium, and, Laker royalty is going to be throwing out the first pitch. It's not a player. It is Natalia Bryant, Kobe's daughter. She will be throwing out the first pitch at Dodger Stadium in honor of Laker Day. It's a cross-promotion thing that they do every year. LA love to LA love. That's what champions do. They big up each other. So we're going to see her out there and get to celebrate them and applaud that. When we come forward, we'll get into a couple of more conversation starters, and then we'll get into the headlines and trending topics. You are locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Infusing a sense of fun and entertainment in every episode. You're listening to RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
If you're a veteran with a service-connected disability that is directly impacting your ability to work, resources are available to help you find employment. VA's Veteran Readiness and Employment, or VR&E, can assist you with finding a job that uses your existing skills. Or, if you're interested in exploring a new field, a VR&E counselor can help you determine the right education or training options for a new career. Find out if VR&E is right for you by visiting va.gov/VRE today.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Meet Joe A,
Hi.
Joe B,
Hello.
and Joe C.
What's up?
3 everyday Joes perfecting their banking with Chase. Joe A is locking his lost debit card with the Chase mobile app. Joe B is cruising toward his new ride with AutoSave. And Joe C's Chase banker is helping him budget to go back to school. Tools that help protect. Support for what's next. One bank that puts you in control. Visit chase.com/checking. Chase, make more of what's yours.
Chase mobile app is available for select mobile devices. Messaging and data rates may apply. JP Morgan Chase Bank, N.A. member FDIC.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Tired of being locked out of job opportunities and shut down by systemic racism? KBLA stands with you in fighting for the rights of black workers, and we don't black down. The Los Angeles Black Workers Center is a dynamic alliance of workers, organized labor, community-based organizations, clergy, students, and scholars, working collectively to improve the position of the black working class. The LA Black Workers Center takes a comprehensive approach to addressing the black jobs crisis. Their programs promote access to quality jobs, racial equity in hiring and retention, discrimination-free job sites, and they prepare black workers for employment in high-wage, career-track jobs. The Black Workers Center supports workers who need help protecting their rights on the job. They give workers access to quality jobs and remove systemic barriers to employment. To sign up for free career readiness training, get involved in organizing around anti-discrimination, learn about union apprenticeship programs, or sign on to a trade registry, please visit www.lablackworkerscenter.org. That's lablackworkerscenter.org. Together, we can beat the black jobs crisis. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Keeping you informed, entertained, and always ahead of the curve. This is RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. So glad that you are here, VIPs. As mentioned, of course, we have a couple of other little topics because, you know, I like to make sure that you are in the know, you know what's going on, because that's what we're here to do for you. So, Dave Chappelle, he is going on tour. He had a couple of shows recently at Madison Square Garden in New York City, but he's hitting the road. So he is going to be in Cleveland, Detroit, Indianapolis, New Orleans, Nashville, Chicago, and more this fall. Are you lining up? Are you ready? Are you getting your tickets? Atlanta too, Charlotte, a couple others. They're through October, so if you are interested, go hit up those tickets to go check out Chappelle live and in color. There is a new TV show that is coming that features Swizz Beatz, and we all know Swizz Beatz has a love for cars. He likes the hot stuff. He got his wife, Alicia Keys, this like sick custom McLaren Mercedes a few months ago. Word on the street was that she didn't like it. She never went back to pick it up. It was like a special one. She has some type of relationship with Mercedes. But anyway, Swizz loves his cars. So he is bringing that love of cars to TV. He's teamed up with the Onyx Collective for a show called Drive with Swizz Beatz. And it features his son, Nasir Dean. He's also a music artist known as Note Mercado. And the show is going to be looking at cars and car communities all across the globe, right? So he and his son will be road tripping to various destinations, learning about the area's car culture. They are bringing car clubs together over the shared love of automotives and appreciation of, you know, beating the odds, things like that, loving to drive. So they're taking trips to LA, of course. So we know that there's got to hit up some of the lowrider culture out here. See those Lolos, those 6'4s. They're going to New York, Houston. You know, Houston, what are those big, like 20-inch, are they Vogues? What are they? What are the rims that I don't know. They're huge. You see them when they do the little swerve thing. So I'm sure we'll get some of that. Atlanta. Then they're going to Japan and Saudi Arabia. There's going to be 6 episodes. It's coming this fall, so look out for that. And also, Real Housewives of Atlanta fans, we know that part 1 of the documentary is going to air this Sunday. But, according to Love B. Scott, there is going to be a shakeup for season 16, and the cast is going to look very, very different. So allegedly, most of the women discovered this before the reunion. They were told to expect big, big changes to the franchise moving forward. Some are hinting at a complete reboot with an all-new cast, much like New York did. There are, indicators that it would be much cheaper for Bravo, because if you think about Candy, who is the highest paid housewife across all franchises, and Kenya Moore, who has a high significant salary as well, I'm sure if you put their salaries together, the rumor is that it would, equal maybe a year of the current Real Housewives of New York salary. That's an all new cast. So we'll see, but changes are coming. There's been a lot of drama this season. And so the question is, are you looking forward to a new cast, or do you want the old ones back? From what they are saying, there is no chance that they'll be bringing back Portia or Kim Zolciak. So we'll see what's going on with that soon to come. Of course, the chat is already buzzing. Tony Yayo has a question for me. He said, I mentioned the Diddy donations and Van Jones getting dollars from Bezos came to mind. Oh, so when I was talking about the Diddy donations, we'll talk about that. I'm not sure about Van Jones and his donation that he received from Jeff Bezos, but we'll see what's going on with that later. We'll talk about Diddy and what he's doing. It's kind of an interesting thing. At any rate, let's get into these headlines. So Styles P, as we mentioned, he and Jada. Why does everybody always leave out Chic? Oh, I mean, maybe he keeps a lower profile. But anyway, he was recently on Touré's podcast, and he revealed that he felt more comfortable with Donald Trump as president than he's felt during President Biden's term. He said that the reason why is because he respected Trump's clear racism as opposed to what he believes Biden and his administrations, the Democrats as a whole, basically, hidden agenda. So we're going to listen to his comments.
I did prefer when Trump was in office over Biden, and I could tell you clearly why.
Why?
Black people paid more attention to what was going on.
Because we felt like we were in crisis.
Yeah,
because we were
in crisis now though. But when it's somebody, I'd rather have you tell me you don't like me, and know you don't like me, and you inform me, than me have to guess it, or you secretly don't like me, but you telling me you like me.
You're not.
I think the government's been doing that for ages.
But you're not supporting Trump in any way.
No,
you're saying
I don't support Trump in any way.
You're saying the racism was clear here, and now it's
I'd rather deal with that.
It's a little more cloaked.
I'd rather deal with clear racism and just someone being who they are and letting you know where they come from.
Right. But you're not saying the country was better under Trump.
Nah, I think the country sucked under both of them.
So, probably not the greatest way to illustrate his point, but Andy, we're going to talk to you about it. You got an opinion. What I mean by that is that I think that I understand his message. His message is that he feels in his mind the Democrats have racist policies, racist ways, but they move covertly. At least with Donald Trump, it's out in the open and you know what you're getting, right? So I understand that thought process. But at the same time, I also feel like, one, did that move it forward because it was clear? Did that move it forward for us? Did it make us be able to deal with those situations any better? Or did it embolden a group of people to act out on those same thoughts? I feel like it's that, but again, I'm not mad at Styles saying his piece. I get it that people feel like, both sides have something wrong with them. And that's fair. Nothing is going to be all perfect. But I do think that there are some policies that Biden has put in place during his term thus far that have been helpful. But you have to consider the position that he was in when he came into the presidency. I'm not a political expert, so we're not going to go super deep into that. But I just think that we have to be very careful with how we frame things. Obviously, Touré asked the follow-up question, are you for Trump? Are you advocating for him? And he's like, heck no. But I think it's dangerous to even at this juncture get into those conversations sometimes, because the way that black men are, I won't say being used, but being presented by Republicans in this run seems tricky to me. Seems like an easy way to fall into that slippery slope. You know, I mean, the reality is right now there are a lot of black men that are feeling the Republican way. It's going to be interesting to see how those things bear fruit. But you know, I can understand that you feel like maybe it was clearer, but did clear necessarily mean that it was easier to deal with? That's my question. Andy?
I think your question, I don't even think that was the issue in the discussion. I just think he simply just stated how he rocked with Trump over Biden, like you said, because he was more overt than covert. And that was it, really. You know what I'm saying? If you wanna have a progressive conversation or a progressive dialogue or whatever, it probably was more of that. You know what I'm saying? Considering this was just a clip, so I don't know if it's dangerous. I think just. I
mean, well, maybe dangerous is it? Well, I say the reason why I say dangerous is because we've seen how things can be misconstrued. We've seen how they've tried to latch on. I mean, look at what we went through with Herschel Walker a couple of months ago. The craziest thing in the world. Do you know what I mean? And so we don't want more of that. I think it dilutes the real issues, and it's so easy for us to get swayed, and there's so many things that are added on to what's happening. I just think that, you know, we got to choose our words carefully. I understand we want more for the Democrats, from the Democrats. Some of us do. We feel as though that we hand them our vote. That's what some people feel like, you know, lesser of two evils, so to speak. But if you feel that way, and I feel that, what are the options? And not just, hey, come talk to me, like Cube. No shade, I'm just saying, but realistically, what are the options? And if there is a candidate that you feel fits the bill, right, instead of, you know, expecting everyone to come to you, what about your civic duty? I'm just asking questions. Do you know what I'm saying?
Herschel Walker is a different individual. That dude is an actual politician who's black, who's kind of making black people he's just making us look bad, right? Styles P ain't no politician.
He's not. He's just giving his opinion.
He's giving his opinion.
But what I'm saying is we have seen, right? I mean, I'm using Herschel being facetious, but my point in saying that is just that I think that there are black men, if they have a public platform, right?
Yes.
I think that if they feel that they're leaning a little bit, or they can get in there and use the thing. I've never seen so many conservative Republicans all of a sudden want to be down with Ice Cube. Never seen it. You know?
Right.
Agreeing. Feeling it. I like that Ice Cube fella. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I'm talking about. It's just, I feel like it's a slippery slope, you know? But
do you think he should have a more stronger stance? Is that what you're saying?
I think so. I think he should have, well, again, that being only a clip.
Right.
And we made sure to play it in its entirety, right? But I feel like we know where we are right now, and will most people go past that first part?
I'm with you on that, but I will say this. I think Styles P is preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
Especially from black men. I think he had a point in the sense that black people were paying attention more.
I agree with that.
With Trump, but I also appreciate Teray asking clarifying questions. You know what I mean? So I think that helped Styles P's statement more for clarity purposes or whatnot. So
because I don't mind dialogue. I think that it's important to discuss issues, especially in a non-combative environment where you can actually hear the point, understand the whole topic. But I think that if you're going to make those type of statements, have the full thought. And well, what the full?
What are you saying? There was no full thought right there.
So you're saying I don't trust Biden, but why?
There's a lot of people that don't trust
I mean,
Biden.
again,
So you want like policies and receipts and
you don't
stuff
have to
like
give
that.
me like 9 million, but point to something, because I feel like nowadays, and I'm not saying Styles P, I believe that, you know, in things that we've seen, he seems pretty educated. He says what he knows, he'll say what he knows. What he doesn't, he seems to be okay with saying, I'm not informed about that. I don't know totally. But I'm just saying, if you're going to say something like that and you're going to point that out, what do you mean?
If you're gonna listen to Styles P for political advice, you have a problem. You have an issue. I think with anything, you should do your research.
Of course.
Do I see how dangerous it could be considering Styles P's influence on culture? Yeah, but as an individual, you yourself should do your own due diligence and
You
and
absolutely should, 100%. But how often do we do that? That's the question. I mean, because this is the thing. Like I said, I like Styles P. I'm not downing him. I'm not throwing any shade. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have had the conversation, or even that he shouldn't have the stance that he has.
The conversation alone is progressive, I think.
Right.
Styles P, like the fact that he knows, to me, that's dope.
I agree. But to your point, and what we think about, there are a lot of people that do take influence from him because they feel like, you know, he's on his health stuff. He's like, he talks about, mindset and positivity and getting in line, and he took care of his health. And so there are some things where I feel like it's not necessarily bad that he is having the conversation. Mm-hmm. He's a constituent just like we are.
Right.
People have the same questions. So I don't even think it's so much as looking to him as a leader. I just feel like clarify your statements for those that are listening. Whatever.
What was
You're not
it
feeling
clear, though?
What wasn't clear? I told you I would have liked an example of what you mean. That's all.
Come on.
He's not obligated to do. Like I said, I'm fine with it. I just feel like there should be a little clarification, because you'll look up one day and it'll be a tweet for Jason Whitlock's podcast, like Styles P agrees with me, or something like that.
I think people look at Biden's history, they look at that crime bill that he signed
1994.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yep. And then same thing with Kamala Harris. A lot of people were, had apprehensions considering how many black men he threw in jail.
But with that,
those are some examples right there.
I know. I mean, I know those are examples, but with the Kamala example, I feel like people didn't really do their research with that. Because here's the thing: she was a prosecutor, she was a DA. Mm-hmm. That is her job. But she also created bills that helped. That helped as far as the prisoner population. It wasn't all that, but a prosecutor's job is to prosecute.
And black people don't care. They see a black person trying to throw somebody in jail. So the optics was already messed up. And that's unfortunate for Kamala, you know what I'm saying? Because like you said, she's doing her job. That's her job as a prosecutor. But I think the optics, black people ain't rocking with that. You sending my peoples to jail.
Right? I mean, but here's the reality though. Sometimes some of y'all committed a crime. You know what I mean? That's the bottom line. Sometimes you committed a crime. When we come forward, we'll have more trending topics and headlines. You are locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA. Talk 1580. News and Sports is up next.
Stop this burning desire to be with you. Gotta get to you, baby. Won't you come as emergency? Cool my fire, yearning, honey, come set me free. Don't you know now is the perfect time? We can dim the lights just to make it right in the night.
RSVP with Jill Munroe is your go-to show for staying in the know. More engaging conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Esther Dillard, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The University of North Carolina grad student accused of killing a faculty member is being held without bond.
The suspect is facing felony charges of first-degree murder and possession of a firearm on educational property.
UNC Black Police Chief Brian James says the suspect made his first court appearance Tuesday. Monday's deadly shooting at the university triggered a campus-wide lockdown that lasted for 3 hours. The faculty member who was killed was identified as Associate Professor Gigi Yang, who also served as the accused gunman's academic advisor. Meanwhile, Hurricane Idalia is gaining strength. The advisory by the National Hurricane Center says maximum sustained winds slightly increased to 90 miles per hour, which means it will remain a Category 1 for now. And that's the latest. I'm Esther Dillard from the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Need an accident attorney by your side? All you got to do is call the accident guys.
Injured in a car accident or at work? The accident guys can come to you almost anywhere, so you don't have to come to us. Se habla español.
KBLA Talk 1580 is dedicated to empowering our communities by providing progressive talk radio for our audience. We strive to be an intersectional voice for the voiceless. As a Black-owned and operated station, we are committed to highlighting diverse perspectives and creating safe spaces for meaningful dialogue. We believe that everyone has something unique to bring to these political, economic, social, and cultural conversations, and we don't shy away from the hard conversations about current events. We endeavor to be a beacon of hope and understanding, while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners, so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.
Support comes from Getty, presenting The Gospel at Colonus, a theatrical event under the stars that reimagines the story of Oedipus. Blending Greek myth with Black spiritual practice, the show follows the blinded Oedipus as he seeks redemption after a lifetime of tragedy. Co-produced by Court Theater, conceived and adapted by Lee Brewer, with music composed by Bob Telson. Thursdays through Saturdays this September at the Getty Villa Museum. Tickets available now at getty.edu.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminding you that we keep us safe. The Center for the Pacific Asian Family was founded to help address domestic violence and sexual assault in the Asian and the Pacific Islander communities. The Center for the Pacific Asian Family's mission is to build healthy and safe communities by addressing the root causes and consequences of family violence and violence against women. They are committed to meeting the specific cultural and language needs of the Asian and Pacific Islander women and their families. CPAF's vision is of an Asian and Pacific Islander community that embraces healthy relationships and works in partnership with other communities to eradicate all forms of violence. To access services, volunteer, or for more info, visit nurturingchange.org. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe everyone deserves to be safe. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Dominique DePrima. We can all fall into the trap of mindlessly spending sometimes. I know I do it. But one tip for staying on track is when you have an impromptu purchase that comes up, try making a habit of taking a quick look at your bank account balance before you buy it. It's not just about seeing how much you have in your checking account. Just looking at your account might put the urge to make that impulse purchase into perspective and help you make better choices that'll benefit you for the long term. Whatever your financial goals, U.S. Bank Access Commitment Initiatives can help support you in reaching them. Access your financial goals at usbank.com/access. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Meet Bruce.
Hey there.
He's a busy soccer dad who's trying hard to learn the game.
Go for the end zone.
Whoops. Luckily, other things come easy, like banking with Chase. On a tip from his banker, he set up autosave in the Chase mobile app. So what are you saving for, Bruce?
Father-daughter soccer camp.
Smart bankers, convenient tools, one bank with the power of both. Visit chase.com/checking. Chase, make more of what's yours.
Autosave requires a Chase checking and savings account. Chase mobile app is available for select mobile devices. Message and data rates may apply. JP Morgan Chase Bank and a member FDIC.
Curating the most compelling stories and delivering them straight to your ears. You're listening to RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm black, whether I'm poor or rich or poor, though it's all the same shit. I'm black, even though my skin's kinda light, that mean my ancestors by somebody white. I'm black, so I like to sing, dance, and crack jokes, eat good food and be around black. I'm black, so I like the oldies on Sundays, drink all night and still go to work Monday. I'm black, so I like my kids looking real nice.
You were locked in to RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. Welcome forward. So a couple of comments in the YouTube chat. Pretty Brown Mimi says, all these rappers, singers, etc. have their opinions, but we have our opinions too. I don't want DJT anywhere near the Oval Office again. Tony Yayo says, a lot of men in general agree with fiscally conservative messaging. I agree with you on that point. They do. And a lot of men, quietly, a lot of black men, rappers, athletes, as they get older, become more conservative. They lean a little bit more to the right. And that's what comes, exactly, Andy, that's what comes when you get money. But we have a call. Fahima's on the line from D.C., staying up late with us. Hi, Fahima. Thanks for checking in.
Yeah, I'm trying to get stuff together for this course. But thank you for taking my call. Is Andy on the line? Is Andy available? Okay.
Absolutely.
I want to respond to part of the discussion that you and Andy was having. And in 1995... Was it 95? Well, in the late 90s, I was in graduate school. And one of my policy projects was the 1994 Omnibus Crime Bill, right, which was sponsored by Joe Biden, right? And let me just say, one of the things that inspired me to use this Omnibus Crime Bill because of the Kimber Smith case. I'm sure you remember Kimber Smith. That was the policy paper I used, looking at the crime bill. And as I said, let me cut to the chase. The fact of the matter is a segment of the black community called for, they didn't say we want a crime bill, they said we want something done because we were in the midst of the crack epidemic. You had border babies, and many of those border babies are young adults today with multiple social emotional problems. People were selling their bodies. Families were being destroyed by the crack epidemic. And we didn't know that how it was going to create mass incarceration, but it did. But a segment of our community was calling for something to be done about the latent effect of the crack epidemic, which, as we all know, Ronald Reagan was responsible for it, the crack epidemic. And Joe Biden wrote the bill because in response to our clamoring for something to be done.
Because grandmothers were being, accosted on the street, violent crimes. You were absolutely right. It was a different time, and we collectively as a community, not individuals, but collectively, were looking for someone to help the regular people.
Well, they were looking for some kind of solution because, most black people I'm no exception. I had people in my family who were impacted indirectly or directly by the crack epidemic, okay? And in fact, I was dating a doctor. His brother was a PhD college professor, and that college professor got strung out on crack cocaine. I remember seeing people who I went to school with who were selling their bodies on the street because they had been addicted to crack cocaine. And elements of our community, I'm not saying everyone, because someone whose family may have been impacted, they may not have, they wanted something done, but there were elements in our community that had a hue and cry and demanded that something be done.
I agree with you. And it's unfortunate that it led to a lot of, our Black brothers being locked up, but it's unfortunate that all of those situations were happening and converging at once. Andy, go ahead.
Nah, Jill, go ahead and say what you said. I don't know if you said it right at the end before we went to break or during the break. It had something to do with kind of like accountability on our part.
Oh, some of you are criminals. Like, that's just it. That's the reality. Some of you did the crime and deserve the time. Real rap. Do you know what I mean? And that's just it.
The views expressed by Jill Munroe must be disassociated by Fahima Sack.
But Fahima, realistically, I'm not saying everyone, and I'm not saying some of the laws weren't unfair and weren't harsh, when we really took a step back and looked at it. Obviously we were looking at it at the time, or those individuals, within a vacuum, right, about what they could do to this. But the reality is, just like we see some of the smash and grab crimes that are happening here, right there on video. Do you know what I'm saying? Not all of them are us, but some of them are us.
Well,
it is what it is.
Well, then there's something happens when we see us engaging this behavior, and the community is divided. I am of the school of thought that poverty breeds crime. You take typically one of those young people, and I'm saying this as someone who's worked with young people at at-risk youth. Mm-hmm. If they had a job, if they were involved in sports, and they had a girlfriend, someone would say, "Hey, we're gonna do a snatch and this." "Nah, man, I got practice." "Nah, I'm taking my girl somewhere." "Nah, man, I got to go to work." The poverty breeds crime.
Listen, I agree with you, and you are 100% correct. But there are some people that are just like, hey, I want my cake up and I want it now. I'm not willing to work at that little bitty job and save my coins. I want the big body Benz today, or, whatever it is that you want. I want that chain. I want the drip. I want what I see others have on social media. Again, I am 100% with you that poverty breeds crime. And when you are in dire circumstances, you sometimes act in ways that are not in your best interest, not in the community's best interest, and can do harm. However, at some point within that, there is a responsibility to be had. At some point, you understand right and wrong. At some point, you understand the harm that you are doing, and it becomes a choice. And the thing is this: no matter what the circumstance is, we all have a choice. We may not like the choice that we have, but we have it. And if you choose to do this thing, right? Not all, not some, then, like, some of those people need to be in jail. That's all I'm saying.
There is no evidence-based research that purports what you just said is true without some complexity. Because no kid comes out of the womb saying, "I want to be a thug."
Of course not. But let me ask you this, and be fair. And I'm sure you have come across, there are definitely some individuals, children or not, that are more inclined to the darker side of life, to the edgier side of things. Do you know what I mean?
But that
We've seen,
happen
listen,
overnight.
but here's the thing. It doesn't happen overnight, but we've also seen kids that I know when I was coming up back in the day, right? There were some kids that were not necessarily impoverished. They lived in a good neighborhood, 2-parent home. The things that you say, give you the thing. They may have been involved in sports, but they also gangbanged. You know what I'm saying? What? They also were, scamming or things like that. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like there are things culturally that we get caught up in that are based on circumstance. And then there are culturally things that we get caught in just because sometimes people are fools. Okay.
Well, I don't think it's as simplistic as that. Go ahead, Andy.
No. What he was saying was when we come forward, we will have more from you, Fahima, because we really want to hear what you have to say because you're bringing out very good points and very good topics, and I love this conversation. We'll have more conversation, more from Fahima on RSVP with Jill Munroe here at KBLA Talk 1580.
Trending topics and the hottest happenings. You're listening to RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to K-Drip, where we play all the best classic water-wasting hits like Sprinklers in the Rain and Leaky Faucets. They're tunes from another time because now that we face a hotter, drier future, every drop counts. Despite an extremely wet winter, keep using less water, fixing leaks, and reusing indoor water for your garden. Visit SaveOurWater.com for more ways to conserve. Up next, brushing your teeth with the water on.
K-Drip. KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
The rent is too damn high. KBLA joins you in calling for affordable housing. The LA Tenants Union is a diverse, tenant-led movement fighting for the human right to housing for all. The LA Tenants Union demands safe, affordable housing and union rent control. They organize against landlord harassment, mass evictions, and displacement, and mobilize for the repeal of the Ellis Act and Costa-Hawkins Act. The LA Tenants Union is on a mission to strengthen tenants' political power through education, advocacy, and direct action. To get help with your eviction or other landlord-tenant issues, take action for justice, or become a member, visit latenantsunion.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Heart failure, carpal tunnel syndrome, shortness of breath, stomach issues, lower back pain. How does it all add up? If you have heart failure and any of those seemingly unrelated symptoms sound familiar, it's time to talk with your cardiologist and get the full picture. They may add up to transthyretin amyloid cardiomyopathy. ATTR-CM is a rare and underdiagnosed disease. Recognize the signs and discuss them with your doctor soon. Learn more at connectwithyourheart.com. That's connectwithyourheart.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Some people won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is killing people. It's a powerful opioid, often made illegally and commonly mixed with illicit drugs. It can even be pressed into counterfeit pills that resemble prescription medications. Just 2 milligrams, about the size of a few grains of sand, can potentially be lethal. This isn't an ad to scare you, but it is an ad to make you think twice. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. Now back to more captivating conversation on RSVP with Jill Munroe.
You're locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. We are having an amazing conversation right now that stemmed from Styles P's comments about his preference for Donald Trump's clear racism as opposed to what he views as Joe Biden and the Democrats' covert version of racism. And really quickly, before we get back to our caller on the line, Fahima, if you want to call in and leave a comment, 800-920-1580. But she mentioned the case of Kimba Smith, which was a case that took place in 1994. I just wanted to give you a bit of background and context on that case. The time Kimba was a young lady, she was dating a guy who was in the game. He was a dealer, and she got caught up with him. It was her first time ever drug charge. She was sentenced to 24 and a half years in jail. President Clinton commuted her sentence in December in 2000 after she had served 6.5 years. She's now an award-winning speaker and advocate and consultant about those type of things, incarceration. So, that a bit explains, Fahima, to your point, how we can get caught up in the system for things sometimes just based on environment. But I would like you to continue the point that you were making before.
No, I just want to add a little more to, because it wasn't as simplistic as because there was a big story in Emerge magazine on it. And 1994 was when she was sentenced, which was the same year that the crime bill was signed by Bill Clinton, who actually gave her clemency. And so the thing is that Kemper Smith came from a middle-class family. They were very overprotective, so she was vulnerable to have gotten caught up with this drug dealer guy. And they gave her 24 years, which was more years than she was alive at the time, because she was a college student at Hampton University. And because he was dead, they decided to go after her. And her parents advocated at the Congressional Black Caucus every year about her case, and eventually Bill Clinton gave her clemency, and she is a lawyer today. I just wanted to add in those additional points. But I just wanted to reiterate the fact that, you had said that these people, they did the crime, so they should do the crime. Am I correct?
Some. Okay. I said some. I said some of these people are criminals. Not all, some. And, again, there is over-sentencing, all of that. I know that we are sentenced harsher, but the reality is there are some people that deserve to be incarcerated, and we can't keep kind of going around that. I know that we do a lot for the greater good and the greater idea, but part of the greater good is making sure that environments are safe, which kind of is what the crime bill started for. I don't know if I would have voted for the crime bill in 1994, but I do remember the fear and the outcry.
You would have, but
I don't know, because at that point in time I was much younger. No, but I was much younger, so my thoughts around that were a bit different. With age and experience, your viewpoint comes a couple of different things. So, but continue. We're having a great conversation. I love this.
These so-called criminals have the world that was presented to them, and so there are a number of extenuating factors. And because I had a kid who I inherited and was his clinician, because his clinician had resigned. And as I was getting ready to go to court, I saw him on the news. He was charged as an adult because he was robbing people on the National Mall with a BB gun. And I saw him on television as I was getting dressed to go to court for his hearing. And they mentioned his name because, again, they charged him as an adult. And, he was a federal crime because he was robbing people with a BB gun on the National Mall. And long story short, this young man was a menace, right? Mm-hmm. He threatened to commit suicide when they had him in the D.C. jail, so they transferred. This is why they had the hearing. So he was transferred to an RTC, which was for juveniles. And while he was there, he was a complete and total menace. He caused a riot and all kinds of things. And I saw him maybe few years, let's say about 15 years ago. And he was working in Best Buy. And I asked him, what was he doing? What was he up to? He was in school at the University of District of Columbia, and he was planning to become a police officer. And I say that to say this. Those we think ain't going to make it, sometimes they do.
100%. And I do not believe that, just because you make a mistake, even a mistake that may cause you to have prison time, means that you can't come back from it, that you can't recover, that you'll never do anything great with life, that you are always doomed to be in that lifestyle. But I do believe, though, and I say this as someone that has seen all sides of it, that there are some people who don't care regardless of their upbringing, and we can't lean on the crutch of, though there is a systematic element to it, that's not an excuse.
But if this kid had gotten written off and was sent to jail and further criminalized, he wouldn't have been able to turn his life around. And again,
here's the thing, but do you know that? Because there are plenty of people that have gone to jail, studied, come out, and knocked it out the park, advocated for prisoners while they were in there, learned, got a degree, bettered themselves as people. So,
yeah, that's true. But in this instance, he would have been further criminal. He was scared in the D.C. jail with grown men.
Of course.
He would have been further criminalized had he went to jail and hadn't been sent. And again, he wreaked havoc while he was in the juvenile detention center. And when we closed, he was sent home because they couldn't find a placement for him. And fortunately for him, because this was a juvenile issue, he was able to have it expunged from his record, and he was able to, turn his life around. And I'm just saying that, in closing, these young people, these situations are created. They've removed opportunities from these young folks. I don't know about there where you are, but a lot of the rec centers are closed.
Yep.
A lot of the programs that kids could get involved with, the quality of schools, and let me just say this lastly, in most urban settings, and I know in New York, I'm a survivor of the New York City public school system, because when I was in high school, all you needed was 8th grade reading, writing, and math level to get a high school diploma, and all that's preparing you to be as a member of the servant class, hewers of wood and drawers of water.
I mean, you are absolutely right. The educational system was not created really, for upward advancement. It was created to basically have more workers to fill in the blanks. So, we are on the same page, just different approaches, I think, to something. Because obviously, the example that you
lock them up and save the key, you lock them up and save the key.
No. I'm not saying to lock everyone up. I'm not saying to throw away the key. But what I am saying is that there are some kids, teens perhaps, that have benefited from or deserve to be locked up for a period of time. Not all, I'm not saying everything, but there are some stone cold killers. There are some stone cold foolish individuals out there, and
But how did they become that way?
I mean, you're right. Some of it is environment, but again, there are other people that were in that same environment that did not make those choices.
And they're known as resilient individuals. In my field, those people that come through and overcome those types of situations are known as resilient, because you can have two people in the same family, same environment, same parents, and one will transcend the situation, that's the resilient individual, and the other one will continue the cycle of pathology.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Fahima, because next hour, my guest that's coming up is someone that has been through some of those situations and seen some things about that. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, and he is one of the resilient ones. So thank you so much for your call. As always, you always bring a deeper level of introspection, and we appreciate it here, especially staying up late.
I'll continue to listen.
Thank you. Well, Fahima always she's going to bring it. She's going to light it up. So she had a lot of thoughts. That was an interesting conversation. Like I told her, I think that we are on the same page, just, taking different paths to get there in certain aspects. Andy?
So how do you summarize that whole conversation right there?
With me and Fahima?
Absolutely.
Me
included.
Meaningfully, that, one, we know environment has a lot to do with children that are in lesser economic environments usually fall victim to being a victim of crime or engaging in it just by nature of where they are surrounded at. But there are a lot that do not and make different choices. And the thing is, yes, we do need more community. We do need more involvement. But for those that choose that and maybe are repeat offenders and are dangerous as such, they have to, go through their paces too. They might need a more rough approach. When we come forward, we will have our guest, Grammy-nominated, let's back that up, Grammy-nominated singer-songwriter Bobby Newt. We will also get into more of these trending topics and headlines. You are locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580.
So proud to say that I made it. I'm black. Through all of the struggle and the hate. I'm black. And I'm not afraid to say it. I'm black. I'm black. 'Cause I know say it again. I'm black. So I got a heart full of bravery. Do it for my peoples that went through slavery. I'm black. So I'm young in the sports. 90% chance I get
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Esther Dillard, and here's the latest from the Black Information